Good morning, everybody. It's Bryan Caprice, and this is Monday Morning Market Breakdown. I hope everybody's having a good start to the week. I hope you guys had an enjoyable weekend. I think at this point it's pretty much spring/summer for everybody that would be attending these the broadcasts. And interesting week we have ahead of ourselves. It seems like it's been hit or miss lately with the news releases, where we either have a little bit or we have a lot every single week. And this week is really no different. I would say, as far as the total number of releases for me, for what I'm looking for, definitely a shy week. But last week wasn't huge either, and look what we had. We had our number two, our non-farm payroll number was a great trade, as well as the two Aussie releases last week were both great trades that we had talked about and set up. So this week we're going to dive into that as well. For those of you that haven't been there as well, we are going to dive into the charts a bit. You guys can see, keep trading simple is our mentality. We want to make sure that we don't overcomplicate things. One caveat today, I'm using a different charting platform. The brokerage that I use is was actually updating their servers, and I didn't realize that it didn't update the logins as well. So I have to kind of switch gears a little bit today. If you guys can bear with me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Bryan Caprice. I was the creator of the 30-Minute Trader program. I'm the president and CEO of Keep Trading Simple. What we do is try to remove distractions from the market. So you'll see a lot of today is not going to be super technical. I'm not going to pull 50 indicators out there. I'm a price action reader. I'm primarily a day trader as well. What I do is I develop strategies for people that are on the go. I don't believe in spending 18 hours a day in front of a computer. It's just not me. So I mostly create programs for people that have full-time jobs or people that want to add another asset class into their trading. I did work in one of the advisory divisions of one of the big three banks. I don't work there anymore. I realized that it was not really what it was cracked up to be. I thought I would be helping people teach, trading accounts and things like that, and that was the exact opposite. They said, don't ever look at a chart, don't ever show anybody a chart, just sell these products. And I was like, okay, I'm out. So my biggest problem being a financial advisor was I knew how to trade, and I didn't realize that financial advisors don't. With that being said, in my free time now, guys, I don't have a lot of it. I stay very busy. I coach lacrosse for my two sons there. They're twins. Actually, the shorter one is the older one. On three different teams, primary coach and then two assistant coaches, and then my little one there, I take care of her during the day. She just turned 2 weeks ago, so she is crawling, not walking, but into everything, and she is definitely daddy's girl. So I stay busy with that. I get just enough time to watch the charts, just enough time to help students, and then I love to do these extra webinars to help other traders out as well. Okay, so with that being said, let me go through the risk disclaimers. Trading on Nadex involves financial risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. The information presented here is for information and education purposes only and should only be considered or should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Now, any trading decisions that you make are solely your responsibility. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results, and Nadex contracts are based on the underlying asset classes of Forex, stock indices, and commodity futures. All right, last paragraph is the most important aspect. Okay, trading can be volatile, and investors risk losing their investments on any given transaction. However, the design of Nadex contracts ensures investors cannot lose more than the cost to enter the transaction. Very important to understand that. This is not like traditional options where if you're on the hook, you can get a margin call. Nadex doesn't do that, and it's one of the greatest things about Nadex out there. Okay, now Nadex is subject to U.S. regulatory oversight by the CFTC. It's something that Nadex is very proud of, and it's something that should be highlighted as well. Okay, so let's dive into our top three of the week. So for those of you that know me, every week I like to dive in and we will talk about really what are the top three news releases that we're looking at. Last week we had kind of the rare double on Friday, and that non-farm payroll number was number 2, and that gave us a pretty nice little bounce. This week it's going to be more nighttime news releases. The U.S. doesn't have many major kind of considered high important news releases this week. First one, obviously, though, was going to be employment change, basically the non-farm for Australia. One of the things, if you guys are not looking, actually, that should not read 9:30. That should read 9 p.m. Let me see if I can change this on the go and see if it will change it. There we go. 9:30 p.m. One of the things about late night releases like this, I mean, obviously, it's not late night for them, but late night for us is there's not as many people out there in the market. So it tends to be a pure Australian move. And one of the greatest things about Nadex is they cover multiple pairs. Like you could trade this with the Aussie yen or the Aussie dollar. Okay, so it's a big benefit that you can go out there and trade that. And obviously the US market is not open, so you have two different plays for it. You can see how the strikes line up. So I mean, these things lately, for the last 6 months, these have been, going 40, 50 pips at a shot when they've missed. So you catch a nice miss, there's some nice, potential in these. If you're not looking at them, do yourself a favor, check it out, okay? Number 2 would be a morning release for US. That would be retail sales. Retail sales is one of those numbers. It definitely has the ability to kind of start telling us what core pricing is, and it starts going into inflation. When consumer prices rise or fall, it's kind of an idea of what's going on in the economy or what business thinks is going on in the economy. Particularly where we are right now, if you rewind back and look at the last, basically year and a half, when we've talked about interest rates and rising interest rates, and it's been an interesting battle, and I think it's something that we need to keep close eye on, particularly retail sales, because that's really the kind of the blood of the economy, right? What are people buying? What are, people, what are things being sold for? Looking at where we are right now, last year in December, the Fed's like, yeah, we're going to raise rates. We slowed down, but we're going to raise rates. And Trump's like, don't. You're going to cause problems in the economy. Meanwhile, he's waging a trade war. And then we kind of fast forward. Now the Fed's talking about lowering rates again because of the pressure on the economy, which was, again, everything that he said. But again, at the same time, he's waging a trade war, or putting a trade war up. And then you have what happened last week with Mexico, where he said, hey, it's temporarily, it's on hold, the tariffs are on hold. So, he has the ability to stop the tariffs at any time. So, interesting game we're playing right now with the economy. But at the end of the day, retail sales is a number that matters because that's what people are buying. That kind of shows us the perception of how people are, again, consumers are looking at the economy, okay? So, it's not a non-farm number, it's not an interest rate number, but it is definitely a big number. And we start seeing fractures and cracks here, things are going to start moving around. Okay, just it is what it is. They will be, again, every single one of these trade wars right now, all these tariffs could instantly be stopped right away. And again, if that happens, think about what's been pushing the stock market back. Trade war, right? Trade war. All of a sudden, if all those are fixed and we have, world peace in the trade division, that thing's going to skyrocket. So again, retail sales. With that being said, again, Wednesday night is another Aussie number, okay? 8:30 p.m. It's going to be another late release, but that is Aussie's version of the same thing. Now Australia's had some, they've had some numbers that have been kind of back and forth. So like I said, the retail sales numbers, the unemployment numbers, their unemployment rate is supposed to go down. That's what the forecast is. But if that doesn't happen, again, it's showing more cracks and things like that. So again, retail sales is a good number no matter where we are. Okay, obviously they're not waging trade wars, but that's all we got, right? So. Those are our major ones of the week. One thing I will do, guys, is if you haven't been to this website either, Daily FX, they give a lot of information, and I really like their economic calendar. Okay, if you go over their economic calendar, go down, set it to your time. Again, I am over in the New York. I'm in DC, right outside DC, but we're in that time zone. Get rid of Mexico. I leave Chinese news up there because that does affect New Zealand and Australia. Remove these, but leave medium now. Again, we'll dive in a little bit more. You can see Monday, this morning, we had a lot of Great Britain pound news, right? A lot of reds up here, right? A lot of reds going on. And if you look at currently, like the 24-hour pip changes in the pound dollar and the pound yen, they're both down. The pound dollar is down 60 pips in the last 24 hours. So you can see news has the power to move things. And really, we're talking about the last 4 hours, that basically all that movement, because again, the market was more or less closed before that. A little bit of news later today. By the way, always click weekly view, gives you the scroll down option a little bit better. So tomorrow, same thing. We have a lot of pound news. Okay, tomorrow morning early. Unemployment, again, there may be orders to set up overnight. You just can't say that everything was negative today. Let's take all the negative tomorrow. But a lot of the numbers are forecast to be a bit lower, right? So again, we can prepare ourselves for some type of an overnight. We'll see how the day goes with, how it trends, and again, we'll move from there. But again, Tuesday, not a very packed day with news, right? And again, that happens. It's, we're getting into the summertime. We're in June. People are pulling back. Wednesday, though, Wednesday has news. Okay, we have Draghi talking more early in the morning. We have all the U.S. news that we talked about. And again, CPI is going to be the big one, kind of in there. You can see the two highs. And again, it is supposed to be a bit lower. And then obviously minus food and energy, it's going to stay the same. So again, 8:30 will probably be a hot spot for news. And then we have the Australian news at night. Okay, we see the unemployment rate. And again, you can see it's supposed to be cut. All right, it's supposed to go lower, but if it doesn't, again, the market has already factored in a 5.1. If they miss on this 5.1, there's definitely going to be some nice little movement, okay, as well as the employment change. This number could be negative, and again, that would kind of mess things up. All right, going to Thursday. Again, you got a little bit of Swiss news, although I don't trade this one too often personally. If you do, more power to you. I just don't. I find that I don't have enough movement, and again, these are pretty. The market has pretty much factored these in. These are not big surprise kind of releases. Initial jobless claims comes in. That's considered a medium. This one is typically pretty close. Okay, if you guys are up on Thursday, definitely check this one out. If this is a big miss, then it has the power to move. But typically, if it's, we're talking between 200 and 230, this is not going to really move the market too much. If there's no other worthy news that morning, the newscasters on, CNBC, MSNBC, they may bring it up about, initial jobless claims. Oh, the economy's being, hurting again. We'll see. I mean, that's not considered a high release one. Then you have a whole bunch of Chinese news, and again, Chinese news is really just for New Zealand and Aussie pairs to trade against. Going to Friday, this is where we have the retail sales number. You also have Governor Carney speaking in London. Anytime they speak, it has the potential for a move, but it really depends on what his speech is talking about. A lot of people, I mean, again, I love news. I like news releases like this, where you have an actual number that's released at a specific time. When you have speeches are a little bit different because there's not an actual, I mean, unless it's kind of like something like Brexit, like, hey, at 8:30, I'm going to tell you whether we're leaving or we're staying, but they're never that clear. There's typically a whole bunch of, I need to thank this person and that person. So they are a little bit harder to time. Just a bit harder, right? That's the best way I can really explain it. If I had a better term, I would. So again, I tend to stay for the actual news releases itself. Now, another one too that I did not put up on the board, but it's one that definitely could be up there. See this University of Michigan consumer sentiment right down here? This University of Michigan sentiment is kind of been a sleeper. For a while, it didn't really gain any traction. Lately, though, I'd say the last 6 months maybe, this number has actually mattered more. So I didn't put it on the top 3, but this is typically a pretty close one. It's also around 10 a.m. on Friday morning. Okay, for those of you that trade the indices, you guys know that 10 and 10:30 in the morning are the two most popular reversal time frames, right? Definitely something we could watch. Depending if again, Friday is always a day too that we can kind of level the markets out. If it's been bad all week, it's a great way to have a good ending. Or if it's been great all week, it's a great way to kind of bring us back down to reality. So I always like to watch numbers for 10 a.m. releases, but anytime there's a sentiment about what's going to happen forward, again, if there's nothing else happening, the news can just grab onto this figure and just run with it. Okay, so definitely something that I'm looking at. Like I said, all of a sudden last week, we decided that we were going to put all the tariffs on Mexico on hold. We talked about it for days, and all of a sudden, bam, it's on hold. It's like, really? Okay, so what is it? We talked about all this gloom and doom. It's going to hurt this. This is going to. Are companies going to absorb it and hurt their profits? Are they going to pass it to the consumers? Bad, bad, bad. And then all of a sudden, we're just going to put the tariffs on hold, right? So again, it's one of those things. Looking at sentiment, they don't know that much more than we do. Numbers at 10 a.m. around reversal times, very important. Okay, like I said, if this is a great number, the news will run with it. U.S. traders will, when Europe leaves, we will push the markets because there's nobody else left besides us. All right. So that's the news part of this. With that said, let us go over. Oops. I know the screen's blank for a second. I had to move things around. There we go. You guys should be able to see charts right now. If you can't, go ahead and type it, but I'm pretty sure you can. So, like I said, normally we are using darker charts, and you guys will see that. But this week, unfortunately, when they did the login, they didn't update everything. So I was unable to get live access on the charts that I normally use. So with that said, let's kind of go through this platform. It's white. I'll kind of, normally you're used to seeing 3 time frames. I have 4 up there right now. So I have a daily in this, if you can't see it, I have a daily in the upper left. In the bottom left, I have a 4-hour chart. Then I have 30-minute on the upper right, and then I have 5-minute. Okay, and the way that I use these, again, this is more for my trends. The 2 middle ones, the 4-hour and the 30-minute, are kind of setting up intermediate zones where I'm looking to go, long or short. And then the 5-minute is what I'm using for my actual entries. I probably won't go down in the 5s today, but I will focus on the larger time frames. Okay, so one thing that I'm looking for right now in the Aussie is I'm looking for a bit of a breakout. You can see price is more or less kind of stabilized sideways, right? We've been kind of in this, bit of a sideways kind of move right in here, right? Whoops. We've gone a little bit lower, we've come a little bit higher, and I'm really looking for somewhat of a breakout. And for me, we had a bit of a gap. It retraced and it held, but it really needs a break above 76. Really, I wanted to go above 76 or below 75 so I can really get some true direction in this. If you look down even at the 4-hour, there's not a whole lot there, okay? Longer term for me, areas I am looking for though is I really like the way, whoops, it's funny, I'm not used to dragging right now. I'm looking as this area as a potential for kind of reversals if we can clear that, right? That's up around the 76, 66 area. So about 100 pips from where we are. And I know there's a lot of movement there. There's a lot of play, but even breaking this down to the 4-hour, I mean, we've just really been kind of just, meandering sideways. There's not really a whole lot there. The 30-minute has given us a little bit more movement. You guys can see we had a gap fill, nice little gap that came up and then filled last night. But all it did was really kind of, it shot us up and then pulled us right back into this kind of 75, 64 area. And it's kind of like the doldrums right now. So whenever you see this, and again, you can see it over here on the 5-minute, it popped up and it's literally just flatlined now, okay? Whenever we get into the doldrums trading, this is when I definitely like to go out to news releases because it's showing me that there's not a lot of driving force right now without news, okay? News will act as a catalyst to start knocking this thing all over the place. So what I'd recommend, knowing that, we have some news tonight. Let's see, was there Aussie news today? Hold on one sec. No, yeah, there's a little bit. There's business confidence tonight. It's only considered a medium release, but at 9:30 p.m. tonight, go and check this. See if there's any type of movement in the chart, and that'll tell us, what people are waiting for. And again, it may just be a slow week. It is Monday. Things haven't started yet. But any movement that we've had, we've really pulled back to the same kind of area. And we mentioned that last week that, we had this nice push down last week, and where would we move? And it moved right back to kind of where this, again, the 70, 75, 76 area is. Not a lot to trade from that, right? Dropping down to the kind of sibling here, right? So the Aussie dollar has provided more trading opportunity than we saw in the yen pair, right? And that happens sometimes. Now, this one did come back up, and we mentioned this last week, okay? We talked about coming up and grabbing orders in this area. And that's what it did. It came up, it pushed, and it kind of meandered, right? It held, but now it looks like it wants to push back down again. And when you drop to the 4-hour level, you can see we had basically a couple lows here, right? We had one here, we had one here, and we had one here. And this is really attempt number 4 that's going through it, okay? A lot of times when you see 4 pushes through a specific area, it starts to fail, okay? When it's failing, now all of a sudden I'm starting to look into this area and say, can we retrace back into that, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for. Again, big push last week, recollapse, collapse back down again. Kind of seeing where we're going right now. And like I said, it's showing us a lot of kind of downward potential in this one. This would definitely be something I'd want to watch news-wise. If you see bad Aussie news or we see good US news, that's what will act as the catalyst to push this farther, right? Okay, because bad Aussie news would be bad for them, which means this is going to continue to push down. Okay. All right, that's that one. Let us dive into the next one, which would be Euro Yen. Euro Yen. So Euro Yen has just literally been on a tear. And if you guys were attending last week, you will know that we've been talking about, listen, it's been straight up. There's got to be a retrace somewhere. What's it going to run into? And we were kind of in this kind of area here when we look back. And there's a little bit in there, but the way that this candle was formed, I said if we went much higher, we went into this, if we were able to break this previous high last week, there's not much stopping us up until really up in the 90 area, right? The .90, even 20 area, maybe a little bit higher than 90. There's just been nothing, right? We pushed all the way up, we based, we pushed again, we retested back down to that area, which is nice because we finally had a bit of a retest, and then again, a pretty strong push, okay? This pair is primarily being driven right now by pound weakness. And again, all the pound news this morning, right? We talked about, all the news that we saw. That's, again, this. Oops, Sunday, Monday. All this right now, all this negativity right here, that is exactly why we had this movement today, right? And that's why the day is really basically up since this morning. It's going straight up, okay? The market will react and will absorb this information. It needs to find an area of sellers before we can turn and flip and shoot to the way back down again. But again, the news is what's driving this current force right now, right? It's all the reaction from this morning. So let's see where we can, run into. Things that I would look for, again, we have now pushed higher again and pulled back. If we get a failure to go higher, and again, that's what we're seeing if you look over here in the 5-minute chart, okay, you're seeing somewhat of a retest of or a failure to go higher. If we're not able to kind of push above this, this could be a potential area right here, right? This 89, 89.20 area. Okay, that would mean a lower high, and then all of a sudden we're getting a lower low. Having two lower highs, two lower lows, that means we are in a downtrend now, and that would give us a trend reversal. And again, pullbacks potentially would be down in the 89 region. Maybe, 89.10 would be here, so it'll be about only 20 pips, only one strike. But I think back down into this 89.20 and potentially retracing all the way back down to the 88.88. Okay, ways to play this though. Obviously, look at your spreads. This is a great play when we can kind of push back in this direction. So if you don't look at spreads, this would be the time to do it. All right, dropping down, let's go down to the next Nadex pair, which would be Euro Yen. Okay, as you guys know, I have a love-hate relationship with the Euro Yen. It's either really good or it's just nothing. This one is definitely pushed back up again. It was at this basing area, and we said, it was an okay base. That's kind of where it is now. It gapped into that base and then it's just held sideways. Normally, I'm a big fan. I like filling gaps, but this gap play was really not that much, right? You're only talking about, let's see, by the roller. It's been so long since I've used this one. You're talking about 60 to, it's only about 20 pips to retrace that right back down again. You can see the 4 hour, it's just basically sideways. The thing I do like about it is this though. If we're gonna add a rectangle, you guys see this level of basing here? Okay, there's the candle. Okay, whoops. Okay, you guys see where it bounced off of? We had a nice level where it was impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, and then nice push. This was like a 2-3 bar push to the downside, and price has tickled it, but has never been able to actually touch this sideways. Well, it did. It gapped into there and has been unable to push, right? We kind of had that failure to go higher. It went right to the same spot, and on the 5 minutes, we're starting to see the same thing. So this could be a potential area not only to fill the gap, but to go back to the origin of it, which would be 122.17, which is about 60 pips down. So this does have some potential today. We need Europe, to get in here. We need the U.S. to start slamming this down. We need to see a confirmation. Again, one of the nice things about Nadex is they don't have just strikes that end at the end of the day. This could potentially be one that you guys go a little bit farther out. Maybe you're looking at, say, a 7 p.m. or an 11 p.m. or maybe even like a 3 a.m. tomorrow if you're interested in taking this. Okay. Typically, again, at 11 o'clock, this kind of starts to die down a bit. So again, if you want to take advantage of any news tomorrow, remember, we do have some news tomorrow. This could be something you go for one of those longer strikes, okay? But I am definitely a little bit more, biased to the downside. If it does clear this 123, then yes, I'm looking for it to go up. But there is daily supply, some daily sellers right around that 123 area, which, again, you've got to break this area to prove to me that you want to go higher. I'd much rather take this from the top of this range to the downside, okay? Next would be euro dollar. And euro dollar is the most traded currency pair that exists. Yeah, this one is pushed back up again. We are in you guys can see the arrow, but this would be considered an uptrend setup for us. Okay, an uptrend setup is when we are driving in an uptrend and we have a red candle for a pullback. Where it's pulling back to is a little bit different of a story. Again, it's always a little bit more difficult on Sunday nights when you have a bit of a gap, because on Sunday nights, it's when everybody is really coming online. So it's not as much reactionary. I guess it's reactionary to what happened on Friday night and Saturday, but it's not reactionary to what the banks and the traders and the money out there is doing, okay? We had a very, very large kind of pop on the 7th, on Friday? We're typically, when we see these things, we're looking for retracements back. We had a gap in the direction of the trend, and it did pull back, okay? A little trick for you guys, if you guys are looking at the charts on Sunday nights, when you see gaps like this, right, and gaps are in the direction of the trend, typically it will come back and retest the gap, and that acts as a continuation pattern to continue pushing down. Okay, your overall target on this one typically would have been here. You would have been looking to kind of go to the origin of the move, and that's kind of where we are now, although it's been slow and steady. Fortunately, when this happens on like a Friday, it's a little bit harder to play. You can grab it on a Sunday night. You could set this up for a weekly play, or again, and take it off early if you'd like. But we're looking for retracements back to the downside, and it looks like it's working. It's doing its thing. I typically like for it to hit a little bit stronger of an area than it did. It did hit this kind of what we would call a wick over wick. A wick over wick is a hidden pattern that exists. that it kind of is what gives supply and demand a little bit of a leg up over support and resistance. Okay. It's a kind of a hidden pattern showing price indecision on a lower time frame. It's a very clear basing area. Price literally came up and tagged it, so it's not the pinnacle of where we would say a reversal happens, but it is a pretty nice spot, particularly with how it entered on the lower time frames. So again, we're going to see if this continues to ride back down into the 112.70 range, which is again it's on your 30-minute as well as your 4-hour, and then we're going to decide what it wants to do. There may be long potentials there, but we're going to see if it retraces the news. Those of you that don't know as well, when you see news spikes like this, they typically retrace. It's just where you're getting your entry in. A very common entry would have been here, okay? If not there, here. But again, going into Friday, so you may want to wait for the actual gap, okay? But there's 3 different entries on this one. I take this one short, and all of them you're up about 30 pips at this point, or 1.5 strikes in Nadex, okay? Next is the pound yen, okay? Pound yen, the beast, or the dragon, or there's many different names for it. This one had the opposite, right, of what we've seen, okay? In the euro yen, in the euro pound, we just basically saw it going straight up because of pound weakness. Same situation here. This one has been going straight down, and this one has had a bit more of a retrace, right? It has pulled back up, and it's actually in an area of basing. Yeah, see this? This was a news release that shot this down, and it ground its way right back up to the initiation of the move. That's kind of where we're at right now, okay? Now, it did do it with a gap, and this is a very hard Sunday gap play because while it is kind of, it looks like it's an uptrend, there are lower highs here, okay? There are higher lows, but again, a lot of consolidation at the end of the day, and it gapped right up into kind of a level of, of supply, right? And then kind of pulled back, never filled, came up, and then obviously the news this morning has sent this down, 50, 70 pips already? So this pair has already moved 70 pips based off of the news early morning today. Okay, I do imagine once it settles into where it finds some buyers, it may be down in here, although it looks like it's not going to be till 137.20-ish, about 30 pips from where we are now. I don't know that we'll break below the 136.75, but I think we'll hit about another 50 pips before we slow. It will probably start to move more sideways. I think it'll start to stagnate a bit. This is a lot of move in a short period of time, in 4 hours. It has a daily ATR of about 999-ish right now, and you think from its high here, from where we started, or its peak, we're about 75 pips already. So it's about 3/4 of what it can do in a day. If we move another 30 down and settle into this 4-hour basing area at 137.29-ish to 30-ish, there's your 100 pips, and I think that's it for a Monday. Again, Mondays are not the most explosive days. Okay. Let's go down to pound dollar. Now, pound dollar will probably continue to move more, just because, again, this one is more U.S. based. You saw a similar pattern, right? It pulled back higher, and again, you can see today it's basically just straight down. It was already starting to move from there before. The gap is right over here. This is where we kind of switched from 7 to 9, and this one just was heading straight down. Had a little bit of a pullback, right? This little spike right here was the news this morning. It went back, and yeah, this is where news trading is so much fun. There was the area that it was pulling from. It literally popped and spiked into their news and then just collapsed. And again, same thing. It went from 127.20 down to 126.50. So again, 70 pips to the downside. This one only has about a 70 pip ATR. So for the daily, it's basically hit already. But we have U.S. traders coming online. The U.S. can actually push this further, right? Again, there's not really any minor U.S. news right now. Let's see. Pull this right back over. Yeah, there's really no U.S. minor news this morning, so it's going to be the U.S. reaction to this weekend. Okay, so we'll see kind of what happens from it. All right, but again, this one I think we'll do the same thing. 20, 30 pips down. It's in an area right now, although I think this one is a bit nicer. It has ascending wicks, which typically show us, give us a sign that there are buyers still below. Again, about 20, 25 pips from where we are right now. Okay, unless U.S. traders come on strong this morning, and man, if it's King Dollar morning, then yeah, this has the ability to go back down and test these lows at 125.65. Okay. Let's go down and look at dollar CAD. That's what I had up first. There's a piece right there. So dollar CAD. I love this. This was, this is great. Now it's just flatlined. Okay. You guys look at this 30-minute. Again, here was the gap. It gapped straight down, came back up and filled the gap. Okay, remember we talked about gapping in the direction of the trend. It went back up and filled, and then it just held. Okay, so this one really needs U.S. and Canadian traders to come online. We need some kind of push and oomph in this one. This one has literally been choppy, whipsaw back and forth, and finally last week we got some push finally. And again, I said we were really at the high, right? We had talked about being at somewhat of a higher part of the curve. Okay, it was going to start grabbing orders. We had a wick against the wall over here. You can see it just ground all the way up. If you're looking at the full range, okay, one thing to do is when you see like from a range here to here, I said that there are ways to use a fib tool without getting too crazy. And at the top 30%, which is where we were, is typically where you're looking for shorts. Top 30% you're looking for shorts, bottom 30% you're looking for longs. Well, we were in the top 30%, and last week this basically did nothing but go straight down. Okay, I even mentioned last week one of the things that we mentioned was, there was talks about the news. About tariffs going on to Mexico last week, and I mentioned, well, once there's tariffs on Mexico, who do you think they're going to go after next? Who was in that whole Mexican, that North American, trade deal, right? It was Canada. So would there kind of be things put on Canada as well? And you can see this pair, there's movement, all right. There's definitely movement. But again, because Canada wasn't mentioned, again, Canada gained some strength last week, pulled it back down to the 132 range. Okay. And again, it was interesting that they were not really mentioned. But now at this point, again, we need some, guys, look at this. This is, I can make this, no matter how I stretch this chart out, there's just no movement right now. We're stuck at the 132.75 until we get some catalyst. With no news today, that catalyst is going to have to come from dollar news, okay? Or even maybe gold. Okay, if anybody brings up gold or any numbers in gold, this could give us a little bit of a push. Oil has a little bit of a potential to do this as well, but I don't know that we'll see a lot of oil news today. Okay, dollar Swiss. Where is it? Dollar Swiss is not my favorite pair either. Again, had some movement last week. Again, more dollar based than anything else. You guys can see we had a bit of a gap. Again, it is retracing. Remember we talked about these big extended range candles, these racetracks. It came down, gave us the entry signal when it broke here. What are we? I mean, it's only about a 30 pip, racetrack to the top side, and it's just grinding up. It's going rather slow. I think it's going to push back into the 9 to 950 range, and then we'll see what it does. If it's going to turn and flip, and make another attempt at the bottom side, or if it will stabilize and start pushing back up towards 1. I think the parity number makes sense for this pair. We'll see if it has the ability. And again, if you look, longer term, back to last year, parity is right here. Okay, we were below it a lot, but then we got some pushes up, many more pushes up, and even a push, higher push up. So I think from this push down, I think we could be forming a base and trying to make an attempt to go back towards parity. I don't trade this one too often. This one is typically a reactionary pair to geopolitical news. Not a whole lot of geopolitical news right now. All right, last but not least, where is it? Dollar yen. Okay. Dollar yen looks like it's at a basing area. And if you remember last week and on the other charts, I have it marked off. Okay. This gigantic wick down here, I said was going to give us an interesting bit of a analysis, right? We'd seen price go through the extended range candle here, and it pushed deep into it, and we're at the very, very bottom. And I wanted to see what was going to happen. So 2 things are going to happen with this large wick. One, it's going to provide no resistance at all, and it's just going to fall right through it, like we've seen in some other pairs. Or 2, there's 1 or 2 pairs out there where it kind of falls in here and runs into a mystery group of buyers. Okay, this candle makes price action very difficult to read because literally, the body's here, and then it just spiked down and spiked back up again. Just didn't last. Okay. Right now, again, we would be in a downtrend. Okay. The pullback, again, Sunday nights always kind of mess it up slightly because, again, we were kind of driving back down and there was the gap. Obviously, if the price starts to collapse back down again, it will continue with the same color and we will have downtrend confirmed. And if we get a low between 107, below 107.83, there's nothing here. Okay. It's hard to analyze this to figure out if there are buyers right now. Question is, I don't know. Okay. So we're going to have to see what the charts tell us. If you're looking on the lower time frame on a 4 hour, you guys see this little kind of hidden area right here. Okay, we have a hidden zone right here, and that's what we bounced off of. Okay, that's what the gap went up and kind of grabbed. So this is typically an area where you would be looking to kind of flip it and sell it. But again, it was doing this racetrack from Friday as well. So for me, I am more bearish at this point in this pair. I know it's not good to be bearish in this pair, which means the stock market is going down again. But right now, that's where I'm kind of looking. We've pushed back up, almost within 25 pips of the 109 area. It's ground, but not really a lot of major pushing. Okay, and with the gap down here at 108.17, about a 50 pip run. If we can start getting some confirmation, like, a failure to go higher here, a break of two of these levels, these retests, again, a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low confirmation over here. I'm going to be looking for us to retrace. Whoops, not that one. Looking for somewhat of a retrace back into here for 40, 50 pips or 2 strikes in Nadex, okay? If we do get the confirmation and we are around, again, if it is around the 10:30 period of time, I'm most likely going to dive into the 2-minute, not the 2-minute, the 2-hour binaries. I am a big fan of the 2-hour binaries during the day. No point in dealing with the doldrums in the afternoon when you can get, 2-hour binaries that are, the strikes are much smaller. Instead of dealing with 20 pips, you're dealing with 10 pips. You can grab it out of the money. Some great strategies that you can use with 2 hours. So I like to use those during the day. Again, you can use spreads, but during the sweet spot between 10 and 12, or really between 10 and 2, I like to use the 2 hours a lot. All right. So with that being said, that was our last pair. That's all I got for this week, guys. Again, we're going to be doing these on a weekly basis. If you guys have any more questions, you guys are more than welcome to head over to the website. I'm happy to say that the website is fully up now. So if you guys run over to the website, you guys can reach us. We are also on Discord as well. I don't know if you guys use Discord. Easiest way to get in touch with us, though, is go to keeptradingsimple.com, or you can hit us on Instagram. Hit this Discord button right here, okay? If you guys use Discord to chat, again, we just put it up, so there's not a lot of people. We haven't migrated everybody over, but you guys, it's free to join. You're allowed to chat with our traders, ask them whatever you like. Get in there. Again, we expect a surge over this week as people are migrating across. But you can email me as well if you have any questions with anything I said today. Support@keeptradingsimple.com. And with that, have a good Monday. Have a good trading week, and I'll see you guys next week.